Karl-Anthony Towns returned to Minnesota with a bang, 133-107. The Knicks win. Cat has 32-20. We're getting into it right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks part of your daily routine every single day, whether you're checking us out on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not already, and hit that notification bell on YouTube or the auto download function on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. And if that's not enough, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Knicks Daily Newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland. You can find Strick.land, and he's Gavin Shaw, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. And we are talking about the best win of the season. Gavin, can we say that again? Maybe the Denver win was still better, but this one hit a little more. This one kept me locked in and mostly awake through a roughly midnight finish time. Not enough to record a pod last night, but enough to at least keep my eyes open, which is more than I can say for some of the West Coast games, particularly if the Knicks are losing. It gets a little tough, but just absolutely electric play from Karl-Anthony Towns in his return to Minnesota. And I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about them in a minute too, but I felt a fairly Julius Randle-ish Julius Randle game on the other side. I don't necessarily mean that in a good way. It was good to start, not so good to finish. And Dante DiVincenzo, I mean, if you just look at the box score, it looks like he shot well, but most of that happened in garbage time. So I would say Cat thoroughly made his point that the Knicks won the trade. It just insane efficiency, 32 points on 12 shots, 10 of 12 shooting, 5 of 5 from three, 7 of 9 from the free throw line, and then the 20 boards, 6 assists. You know, it was noted a lot on the broadcast by Jamal Crawford, but Cat kind of came out almost a little passive, just trying to get everybody else involved at first. And then once he decided to start shooting in what used to be his building, he made it his building again and just absolutely dominated in the target center. I thought this was, I mean, in a year where we've already seen some amazing performances, I think just given the stakes and how efficient he was and everything else, I think this was probably Cat's best game of the season.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about it in just a sec. I think we got Cat's best game and Mikal's best game on the same night, and that's how you blow out a really good Minnesota team and drop 133 on a defense that was playing not only the best in the NBA, but dramatically better than anyone else in the NBA over the past 10 games. And it starts with Cat. It starts with Mikal. I'm going to zoom out for 1 second before firing in on Cat. These games are solace for the soul if you're a Knicks fan. I think we've both felt, and like a lot of people who listen to felt, and Knicks fans in general have felt this frustration, and it's because this team is all in, right? And we had to go through the pain of losing these young guys we fell in love with, right? Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, vets we fell in love with, Dante DiVincenzo, Julius Randle. Obviously there were highs and lows, but like we were invested in the dude. You can't question that. And I think on a night we saw 2 of those 4, 2 of those 5, if you want to throw Isaiah Hartenstein in there. This like really rung it home. This is why you make those deals, to have this kind of ceiling. And I think we can say whether or not you think the Knicks are legitimate title contenders this year, and we could say on a season-long sample, they've definitely haven't been as good as Oklahoma City, Boston, or Cleveland. You could argue coming into tonight, I would have said a team like Dallas. I probably had more faith in the Knicks to have a championship type ceiling this year, but you can see where Cat at his absolute best raises this team to a level offensively they were just never going to hit with the previous roster, right? And Julius is awesome. He showed it. What he had like 18 points in the first half on 4 threes. He had 13 points and 2 assists, I think, in the first 7 minutes of this game. Like he was amazing. He just cannot do what Karl-Anthony Towns can do. It was the first game in the history of the NBA a player has put up at least 30 points, at least 20 rebounds, at least 5 threes, and shot 100% from three in the same game. The last one makes it like that famous Thad Young graphic. It's a little niche, but I'm going to say that's representative of the night he had, because it was just insane efficiency. To your point, got off to a slow start all year long. I think I literally mentioned it on the preview episode the other day. I've been praising him for his work against double teams. Minnesota flustered him with really decisive, aggressive doubles. And then we saw him, just like he's successfully done all season, adapt in real time. After throwing, I think he threw away his first 3 passes against a double team. Like one sailed out of bounds. One, he tried to go behind the back instead of just hitting Jalen wide open. Another one out of bounds. And then second quarter, that stretch where the Knicks just absolutely took over this game after Minnesota shot lights out, only led by 1 after the first. And from that point forward, it was all Knicks, a 27-2 run that was fueled by Cat with Jalen Brunson on the bench. He had a hard double from Ant that he survived, just whipping it to Mikal for a layup. Another one where Deuce cut down the middle and Minnesota rotated. And then Deuce hit OG coming for a jam down the left baseline after Cat again made the initial pass out of the double team. He's reading the floor so well, but the bigger thing was just the shot making for him. I mean, in that second quarter, 2 3-point plays, 2 threes, and over again, just like banging shots in Rudy Gobert's face. And I thought Gobert, as the game went along, adjusted and started playing really good defense on him and racing out there. And it didn't even matter. Like Cat was just pouring deep threes in his eyes, like at one point posting Gobert up, pivoting back, and then just hitting a face-up jumper in his face. Like it felt a lot like what he did to Mo Wagner. I've got some more, but I'll throw it to you. I thought this was just like in a game where it initially seemed like he was going to be a little emotional, maybe a little off balance, and maybe just like the time these two teams met after the OG Anunoby trade, Julius Randle was going to own the night. Instead, Karl-Anthony Towns owned the night. And I mean, what a revelation that is for the Knicks when we were beaten up about this trade and it like looked like an open question whether or not it was going to work initially. And man, Cat has just made himself at home and he made a statement.
Yeah, I think the point where I realized it was all over for Minnesota was the one, to your point, like I thought Gobert did a good job defending him, which is crazy considering he shot 10 of 12. Like you would think like, oh, he must have cooked Gobert. Like he cooked him, but not for lack of Gobert, looking viable. And the point where I realized it was all over was the 3 where Cat had it on the left wing by the sideline and just drained it with like Gobert's hand like a quarter of an inch away from his. It was just like Gobert was that close to blocking that 3, and yet Cat just needed that small of a window to get it off and just perfectly switched it. Like nothing touched rim all night. Jamal Crawford was like, when you get Jamal Crawford that worked up about how little rim you're hitting with your shots, you're doing something good because that guy could make some swishes. And Cat then said something to a fan in the front row and just started retreating, probably like, hey, you probably miss me, huh? Like it was all, honestly, it was really funny watching the juxtaposition too between like Cat and Randle on this night too, because Cat, it was like all smiles all night. Everything was like, just like, I'm happy to be back. Like, even though I'm kicking the crap out of my former team, this is, it's fun seeing everybody and playing against them or whatever. And Julius Randle, it looked like he came out on a mission and like was like, I'm gonna destroy them. Like they'll regret this for life. And then things just didn't go his way. And then apparently from what reporters said and whatever, he didn't even stay out for handshakes after the game or anything and just immediately saw himself back to the locker room. So clearly no love lost there. But yeah, the Cat overall game, I mean, even just it's basically like he took all the things that he's done really well this year and just cranked them all up to 11. Like the rebounding really stood out to me. Like I was, we were both kind of worried about that when we were talking to Ben. Like that was one thing where I was like, man, I really hope that they're looking to run. And like the Knicks, to their credit, did, and I think that was part of what helped with that big run in the second quarter was that they were playing really good defense and then getting out in transition and crushing it when they were doing that and making those like long football passes. And that wasn't even just Cat. Like, it's just everybody had their head up perfectly looking, like whether it was Mikal, whether it was I think OG even had one or two. Like everybody was just looking to get the ball flying down the court and run. And so they must have, I don't know, just another time Tibbs must have listened to Locked On Knicks and put that into the game plan. But the rebounding Cat and Precious, to his credit, like we'll probably talk about him towards the end of the show, but I thought he had one of his best games. Like they did a really good job of not letting the size of Minnesota get to them at all. And in fact, sort of exploiting it to a degree. Like Cat managed to get Naz Reid into foul trouble pretty early, which took him out of the game, in the early going, which I thought was really big. Like it was just every little thing that could have gone right for Cat and the Knicks in this game did go right. And so I feel really great for Cat. Like it was very cool seeing him get to have his return moment. And then as a Knicks fan, being able to see him not have that affect him poorly, but instead him just harness that and go Super Saiyan for however many, 35 minutes, 37, 38 minutes that he played. I mean, it was just every single minute that he was on the floor, he was just transcendent in this game. It was easily the most fun game of his to watch all year.
Yeah, just the activity level was so good in that thing on both ends of the floor. Like he had 2 straight steals at one point, and it's what we've been seeing from him all year. Just active hands in the passing lanes. Like Julius did most of his damage in this game on Precious Achiuwa. The Knicks, it was a great pivot by Tom Thibodeau. We could talk about it more next segment or in the end. But moving OG Anunoby onto him, but there were 2 or 3 different possessions where Cat got a chance to guard Julius, and he was just like using his strength, like kind of how he does against Nikola Jokic, taking Julius into his body, like eating some tough blows and not really giving him any room to operate. He had another play where he just bailed Deuce out, like Deuce kind of over penetrated, was double teamed, and Cat just sprinted down the middle, and Deuce was able to just flip it to him for an and one. And it's I think that's the thing I've loved most about Cat this season is, and you would see it from Julius in fits and spurts, but it's the shooting talent. But even in a game like this, where he's shooting absolutely lights out, you're still seeing him running. You're still seeing him rebounding. You're seeing him make those extra effort plays. Like it wasn't really working for him in the first quarter, but he was battling on the offensive glass and fighting off 2 or 3 guys to try to get rebounds, to try to tip the ball out. And like I think he maybe this is speaking early. There are going to be nights where like he does just dumb stuff, but it feels like he's matured a little bit as a basketball player, right? You get that higher end shot making talent, but this is a guy a year ago who had like a 57, 60 point game against Charlotte, and his team lost because he didn't do the little things. And tonight he was cooking, and he did every little thing right. And again, just the number of bigs in NBA history who could put up 32 on 12 shots. Like it's a short list. Most of those guys are like an Embiid, a Jokic players who are playing today. Like Cat is an anomaly. Like that's not normal. Freakish game from him. 6 assists too. We just barely dipped a toe in on that. It was an incredible night, and he was the Knicks' best player. The Knicks' second best player, though, was Mikal Bridges. I thought this was easily his best game of the season. We will talk about it in just a sec here on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we're going to let you know about our good friends over at Prize Picks. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season as well. So that's helpful. You can join now because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. Wow, that's I didn't ask Santa for $30+ million, but that's great. My favorite part about Prize Picks when I've played is the multi-sport entries. So this is a great time of year where there's still basketball and football going on. So let's say it's a Sunday and the Knicks are playing, or maybe not even the Knicks, just any old NBA team is playing, and all the football games are going on. You can make multi-sport entries in Prize Picks, and all you have to do is pick higher or lower than what their projected number is for a given player. So let's say that it was like Aaron Rodgers over under 200 passing yards. You'd easily take the under there. And then let's say it was Karl-Anthony Towns over under 25 points, you would probably take the over because Cat's cooking, and then you could potentially win, and you get to watch 2 different games and have them both affect your entry. It's my favorite daily fantasy sports just for that reason, the fact that you can make those multi-sport entries. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the PrizePicks app and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game.
We also want to tell you about some of our newest friends here at Locked On Knicks over at Rocket RX. Today's episode is brought to you by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control in the bedroom, Rocket RX has the solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor visits or pharmacy trips. Everything is delivered straight to your door in discreet, plain packaging. With Rocket RX, you'll get trusted care from a real U.S. clinical team. Complete a quick 100% online consultation, and you can get your free prescription today. Visit rocketrx.com to get started now. It only takes 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can get 40% off your first order when you use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's rocketrx.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for 40% off your first order. Terms and conditions apply. Rocket RX, better sex made simple. All right, let's pivot over to Mikal Bridges. I thought this was pretty clearly his best game of the season. Statistically, maybe that Pelicans game was the one that's comparable, but 29 points, 12 of 18 from the field, 4 of 8 from 3, 6 assists, second highest total of the season, 6 rebounds. And Alex, for all the complaining I've done, and I've seen the comments, I think I've been more guilty of it than you, just pounding this drum over and over again, bringing up the 5 first-round picks, way more than most people want. And the reason I do that is because I care. And it's because I've seen Mikal play at this level. And we watched him in Brooklyn for not every game. Like, there were some inefficient bad nights, but a good amount for a year, like, be this guy and be a number one guy on not a great team, but like a credible NBA team. And I knew he had it in there because I'm a Suns fan too. I watched it for years in Phoenix, and tonight we saw it. And if you get this version of Mikal Bridges, you just kind of have the feeling the Knicks can beat any team in the NBA. Again, like, you can't make too fine of a point of it. Jalen Brunson, 14 points, 5 of 14 from the field, and they were up on the Wolves by 35 with 2 minutes left in the third quarter. And it's because of Cat. It's because of the whole team. But I think Mikal was the separator in this one from it being like a close competitive game down the stretch to it being a laugher.
Yeah, and I think the big thing, we talked about this the other, I forget exactly which game it was, but the big thing to me was that he made high leverage shots again too. It wasn't just, he had a tough game and then made a few down the stretch or whatever. Like, when the game was already in hand, like, he was the guy that, like, when Julius Randle was going on his run early in the game and it looked like, oh, like this, there's a chance that, Minnesota might kind of do what the Knicks ended up doing to them. And, if Minnesota had been able to clamp up the Knicks a bit, then, maybe they go up by 20 and maybe the Knicks just are fighting, for that fake comeback all game and just aren't able to put it away while they're on the road. But Mikal was the guy, early on when Cat was still kind of getting his bearings and, still just trying to set the table for everybody else. I mean, he was the beneficiary to Cat setting the table a few times, and it just made effortless threes. I mean, whatever we thought about the hitch, and the shot and whatever early in the season, totally gone now, because some of these, I mean, he got that shot off within, it felt like half a second of the ball reaching him. I mean, it was just like right into his breadbasket, and then before you knew it, the shot was up, and he was like off balance for a couple of them. Made a really good, there was like a busted play where, or not really a busted play, it was just right place, right time for him, where I think it was OG took a 3 and it took like a really hard bounce off the back of the rim and came right out to him at the free throw line to Mikal. And then Mikal just kind of saw that there was a defender behind him who was also going for the rebound and was like, well, I got contact, and just went right up with a quick little free throw line jumper, got an and one off of a play where the Knicks could have easily been scrambling in transition had he not been in that place. And, it's just all in all, I thought offensively, the most comfortable that he's looked all year. I mean, just it seemed like he had you would have almost thought that it was his homecoming to Minnesota too. Like, he just seemed very comfortable in that building. Everything was very easy going right from the beginning, but the passing too, I thought that he was, I mentioned how good the Knicks were in transition, and how much they exploited that. I thought that he was the biggest catalyst for that too. Like, he was just constantly like head up, looking down court, whether it was him himself running down court or if he was, looking to make that pass to get the break going. Like, I thought that he did a great job with that, and also worked as sort of the cutoff man a couple times, where he was the guy around midcourt that got the ball off the first pass and then made the pass to ultimately lead to the bucket. Just all in all, a fantastic game for him. I thought he sort of filled in a bit, like filled in some of the gaps of not having Josh Hart for the night, which we haven't even mentioned yet. But the Knicks did all this without Josh Hart as well, who was out for personal reasons. Hopefully everything's good for him. So, if there's any tragedies or anything, I hope that's not the case. But I hope everything's good for Josh Hart, but who I guess had to leave somewhat suddenly. But yeah, for Mikal to step up and play the way that he did, even just the 6 rebounds, which like we've kind of harped on him a bit this year for not getting in there enough, and getting in the mix for rebounds. Like, I thought he did everything well. And that's not even talking about his defense yet, where I thought that he played between him and OG Anunoby, they really took Anthony Edwards out of this game until it was too late for Minnesota. And, whatever Edwards did at that point didn't really matter because they're already down by like 30. So I thought that he did fantastic on that end too.
Yeah, I think you nailed everything. Like the comfortability is great. The aggressiveness is a word we've used over and over again with him. Just playing aggressive. I think this is an associated word, but activity is what I would say. And that was the single biggest thing that was missing earlier this year. Where he looked lethargic. He looked like he didn't want to touch the basketball. It looked like he didn't want to make contact with everyone. We're like, dude, this guy was the Tasmanian devil early in his career, like filling every gap, flying around on defense, flying around on offense, hitting threes, dunking the basketball in transition. And I don't know if we're full tilt, like him attacking the rim and getting to the free throw line and stuff like that. But that activity level is way up. And I thought you saw it really early in this game. And to me, that's how he cues his passing, because even as he's gotten better in terms of having a bag and having a handle, like he's never really been, all right, I'm gonna cook my guy, I'm gonna drive, I'm gonna draw the help, and then I'm gonna spray it out. It's more so like he's so active as a cutter and running around off the ball and driving and swinging out and relocating and shooting or driving again. And I thought tonight was like welcome to the freaking Knicks, Mikal Bridges. Like this is the guy that I loved and was one of my favorite players in the NBA. Like I know I'm harping on that, but I can't say like what a relief it is to like, no, I'm not crazy, and know like, hey, this is in there. Like it started early, like got a rebound, push the ball up the court, throw it to Precious, run right to him and get it back. It was almost, I'd call it like a give and get, drive baseline, draw help, and then just sling it in the opposite corner to Jalen Brunson for 3. I thought him and Brunson all night, even though Brunson didn't have a great game, like awesome 2-man chemistry. Like he had a relocation corner 3 off a Jalen drive, had another one where he was in the left corner, ran a pick and roll with Precious. Brunson cut it off, and with Cat sealing him with the screen, Mikal just curls up and hits him for a live dribble 3. Had another one in the fourth quarter where he ran like a pick and roll in the left corner with Precious, and on the other side of the court, I think this was a called play by Tibbs. Cat set a back screen for Jalen, and Jalen just sort of snuck to the right wing. Mikal dribbles up, hits Jalen, cross-court pass. Jalen hits a 3. Mikal scored on like a dribble handoff from Jalen that he got to a short fadeaway, like over and over again. Like I just want to see more of those two playing off each other. And we mentioned that stat the other, 2 pods ago, that Jalen was first in the NBA in ball dominance, and just putting him and Mikal in the action together. Like we see with Cat, they have a great pick and roll duo. Like let Jalen make Mikal better. Let Mikal make Jalen better. And this is the stuff that we've maybe underestimated a little bit in terms of just needing time to develop because they played so much together in college. But I think Josh not being in the game maybe just gave them a little bit more room to explore that. And I want to continue to see more because I thought it made Mikal a better player. And then you mentioned his defense. I thought it was really good on Ant. Like the strategy against Trey to have Mikal like just chase him coming around the screen kind of backfired when you go back to that Hawks game, just because Trey started throwing lobs. He started hitting his floater. Anthony Edwards is a guy who wants to bomb threes. Like I think top 5 in the NBA in 3-point attempts per game. And Mikal just took that away. Like in a blowout where Ant should get up 15 threes, he took 7 in 34 minutes. And because Mikal was like chasing around the screen, staying attached to the hip and saying, you know, you want to make twos when you're down 30 to try and come back, go ahead. And we could talk about it more in just a sec. But the defensive playmaking off of that with OG doubling and getting strips, like the defensive playmaking off of Randle that Mikal was involved with, like it was a dominant two-way performance for him. Keyed the Knicks' big second quarter run, which we'll address, that kind of flipped the game. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we got to let you know about our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And it's that time of week. It's where I look at the Jets matchup for this week, and as a jaded Jets fan, decide whether it's smart or dumb what their line is. This week at home with the visiting LA Rams, the Jets are 3-point underdogs. I think it's safe to say you can bet the Rams to win. You could probably bet the Rams to cover, because this game doesn't matter for the Jets' draft positioning. So in games where it matters, where they need to lose to help their draft positioning, they will always win, which they did against the Jaguars last week. But this one, you know, they've already kind of screwed the pooch there and probably destroyed their positioning to get a new quarterback, and will probably re-up Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. Can you tell I'm jaded? And so at that point, it may as well just lose to the Rams now, because nothing matters. So I think you bet against the Jets this week. So anyway, but if you want to do that or anything else, I don't know. I've been pretty spot on. So I probably could have made a bunch of you $150 in bonus bets by this point if you follow my Jets advice, but feel free to give it a try. I think I'm like running about 6 or 7 weeks strong with correct picks there. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Gavin, we're back in to keep talking through this big win. I love reading the final score when it's really big like this. So 133-107, Knicks win in Minnesota. We've already talked about Cat. We've talked about Mikal Bridges. We've briefly touched on Brunson and the fact that, I mean, I'll just say, like, so he didn't really get to play much during the biggest run of this game. He took a pretty tough offensive foul at one point. He stepped in for a charge against Naz Reid, who then, I mean, it was unintentional. Like, they looked at it for a flagrant. Normally I'm quick to call things, you know, if it even like Cat's one the other day where he tried to make it look like a basketball move, but it's obvious it wasn't. I mean, Reid was literally just driving in and had his arms up and happened to catch Brunson in the face with an elbow. And it was enough to make you worry about potential like orbital bone issues or whatever that players run into, where Brunson just got clocked like right in the face. But he was down for a minute. They subbed him out, and then he stayed out for a little while and then did come back in the second half, looked fine. So assume everything's okay there. But in his absence, the Knicks had just a crazy run in the second quarter, mostly fueled by Deuce McBride, campaign, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, and then Karl-Anthony Towns as well. Towns was doing most of the damage on offense. That was when he, you know, really stepped up and did his most damage there. 19 points in the second quarter. He made 3 of 3 from 3, 5 of 6 overall that quarter. But as a team, the swarming defense was, I think, as good as we've seen it this year. Just the amount that they were making the Timberwolves uncomfortable, the way that they were playing the passing lanes, the way they were getting out in transition. I think, you know, we already talked about Mikal to a degree, but OG, you know, another sort of so-so offensive game in this one where shot 3 of 8, 1 of 5 from 3, just 9 points. But, you know, another 3 stocks in this game. As a team, the Knicks had 10 steals, which is a really solid number for them. Not a ton of blocks, just 2 of those, but I didn't think that was really indicative. Like, I thought the rim defense was really good. I thought the Cat was doing a great job getting his hands in passing lanes. It's one of his best defensive efforts, I think, during that stretch. But Campaign and Deuce McBride, too, just playing the perimeter. They're a really lethal duo when they get the chance to play together for extended minutes. And we saw that in this one. And I that was the point where the Knicks ran away with the game and just kind of never gave it up. But, you know, I thought that second quarter, just that one stretch. I mean, I call it one stretch, but really, I mean, it was the whole quarter. I mean, the Knicks ended up winning that quarter 41-18 by the time all was said and done. I mean, they doubled them up. I think that was the most dominant the Knicks have looked on defense this whole season so far, and I don't think that's too big of an exaggeration.
No, I think that's totally fair. They give up 33 in the first quarter, 41 combined in the second and third, and that ended the game. They were a little sloppy at the end of the second quarter. Like Jalen took a shot with 6 seconds left in the second. Ant comes down, hit a three, and all of a sudden the Knicks, it felt like they should have been up by 40, and they were only up 21 at halftime. And if I wasn't watching from behind, I would have been a little wary, but it did feel like one of those games where, all right, Minnesota could put it together and you could blink and it could be an 8-point game. And you're like, what the hell? How did we waste that brilliant second quarter? And because the Knicks defense was so good throughout that second and third quarter stretch, they took control. I've kind of alluded to it, and we've talked about Cat's play and we talked about Bridges play in it, but I just want to drive home that second quarter one more time. Again, it was a 27-2 run. You extended out. It was a 37-8 run, which is just ridiculous. That lineup we actually have not seen a ton of this year, and I think it's because different guys have been hurt or beat up at different times. But Cam Payne, Deuce McBride, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl-Anthony Towns. Coming in, they'd only played about 60 possessions the whole season, now up to 74, a plus 35.1 net rating for that group. And that is a level that maybe like the best Emmanuel Quickley lineups hit for short stretches, but I'm just trying to remember since the Knicks have gotten Jalen Brunson, if they've had a lineup that good when he's not on the court, and I don't really remember it. I'm hoping that becomes a little bit of a go-to bench unit for them. Like if you could just get that lineup on the court for 4 or 5 minutes a game, because to your point, like the chemistry, the defense, their ability to get out and run. And we have to note Minnesota helped the Knicks by just being like, that was some of the worst transition defense I've ever seen. Ben warned us a little bit, but it was shockingly bad. Their off-ball defense in general was really bad. But the start of that quarter, like I was getting texts and I was still in the late first quarter. Everyone was like, oh my God, holy word I can't say. And I was like, what happened? And then the first 5 possessions of the second quarter, they go 5 for 5, 14 points, 2 for 2 from 3, 2 and 1s. And it was just like, all right, are they ever going to miss again? And it was ridiculous. And I saw this quote on Twitter. I'm going to butcher his name. It was from AJ Prolks at Ajmahal, 4. And he said, some teams use 5 out to create driving lanes. Knicks use 5 out to create cutting lanes. It's truly beautiful hoops. And I couldn't agree with that enough. Like just the cutting and like the cuts off the cuts, like over and over again. Minnesota would fall asleep off ball. The Knicks would just kind of jolt to the rim. Someone would catch a pass, spray it out. And it was creating advantages, but then decisively leveraging advantages. And like you think back to like those early 2010 Spurs teams, that's what defined those teams, I think. And the ability to do it off ball just as much, if not more so than on the ball, is really exciting. Last thing I want to mention, just because you kind of touched on it, I thought OG had just a pretty amazing defensive performance on Julius after switching to him. And it was fun to watch them go against each other. I know you're a fellow comics head, like that episode of Justice League Unlimited where you got Superman fighting what's his name? Not Captain Marvel, Shazam. Mm-hmm. And just like every time they'd punch each other, the buildings would shake and break around them. That's what this felt like. It was just 2 Titans going at each other. And the Knicks gave Randle sort of a taste of their own medicine, like where they were doubling Cat, and the Knicks were like, all right, we could do that too. And you had 3 different plays. One where Brunson on a hedge was super aggressive and just like stripped the ball from Cat at midcourt. I thought that was maybe my favorite defensive play I've seen from Jalen all season, led to an OG transition layup. You had another one where OG and Mikal switched, and Mikal held up on the initial drive. So Randle had to spin back, and then OG just came in out of nowhere, stripped him, pushed the ball up the floor. Deuce got a corner 3. And then there was one other one where like Julius did his like shoulder bump step through that clears out everyone. Didn't clear out OG, missed the shot. OG whips it up the court. Mikal tiptoes the sideline, throws a one-handed like 50-foot pass off of live dribble on a dime to Precious for a layup. And it was like those 3 plays that define the game, but it all starts with OG's ability to hold up at the point of attack. And then once you have that, they could get out and running. And I just thought, look, just an amazing 2-way performance across the board.
Yeah, I thought he was fantastic, and to say nothing of the fact that he started the game guarding Edwards to a degree too,
Mhm.
and stifled him. It sort of just showed the full Swiss Army knife tool set of OG that you can throw him. There's a limit to, as we saw with like Tyrese Maxey in the playoffs last year, like there's a limit to just how far you can push it with like what guards you put him on and the smaller wings and whatever. If a guy has like the 100th percentile speed, that will maybe be the thing that can take OG out. But the fact that you can put him on, the other team has two 20-point per game scorers, and one of them is a super bouncy, hyper athletic wing that has been shooting like 40 something percent on like 10 attempts per game from three this year. And the other one is just a bulldozer that is a good passer out of the post and everything else. And he goes on both of them in one single game and takes both of them out of the game. I mean, he took Ant out of the game early, and like I barely even knew the Ant was on the floor, which had something to do with Julius going full ISO Julius mode early in this game with his little revenge tour, and also something to do with the fact that OG was just kind of taking Ant out of the game. And then once Julius was heated up, he comes back in for his second stint, and it's like, okay, well, OG's on you now, and he couldn't do anything about it. He shot I looked at it before. I think it was 5 of 8 in the first quarter for Julius, and then 3 of 9 the rest of the way out. And most of that was thanks to OG. And I mean, I'll take this opportunity to be grateful for the Cat experience over the Julius experience again. I mean, I don't want to crap on the guy because I did really genuinely enjoy a lot of his moments with the Knicks, but this game officially made me not have any no part of me is missing Julius Randle anymore in the Julius Randle experience, because I thought that this was, and I'm sure Minnesota fans are probably feeling it. I mean, they were booing the crap out of the Timberwolves last night. I mean, they were heavily booing them, like no less than a half dozen times in this game, and I mean they deserved it because they looked pretty listless at times. But um, I mean the fact that Julius came out to a good extent, I guess. I mean, because he was scoring early, like basically hijacked their offense early on for his own vendetta against the Knicks, and then later on just continued to do so. Like it felt like every time the ball hit his hands, you knew that he was going to try some crap, and he just got shut down by OG a number of times. The Knicks like took advantage of all the things that they know they can take advantage of with an angry Julius on the court, which was doubling him and taking advantage of the fact that he was going to wait too long in those scenarios when he's feeling himself and trying to get inside and score, and take too long to get that pass out, and then leverage that into either a turnover or at least a bad pass or whatever. I thought they had the book on him, and they threw it at him and completely destroyed him in this game. For as much damage as he did early in the game, he didn't totally shoot them out of the game late, but he did his part. The Timberwolves had a window, right at the beginning of the third quarter, like after that little flurry at the end of the second quarter, they could have come in and sort of punched the Knicks in the mouth in the third and potentially started to climb back. And instead, they just were never able to do that. The last person that I'll shout out is just Precious Achiuwa. I thought that he had, I think, his best game since coming back. I don't think that's debatable at all. 13 points, 10 boards, 2 assists and a steal, stepping in for Josh Hart. Shot 6 of 9 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3. I mean, he has one of the only, other than the garbage time guys, like one of the only negative plus minuses on the team. The only one out of the players that played like significant minutes in this game. I don't think that's indicative of his performance though. Like I thought that he did a good job of keeping the rebounding, as much in the Knicks' favor as it needed to be early in this game. I thought that he did a really good job running in transition. Like we finally saw sort of the ideal of what his role could be on offense with this team, which was, just cuts and being in the right place at the right time when someone else drives in and draws that double. Precious, crashing in from the perimeter, and then leveraging the fact that he's a big guy and a good finisher to get, easy layups, and even finished a really tough one over Rudy Gobert at one point where I was honestly, when he took it, I was like, dude, what are you doing? And then it went in and I was like, oh, okay, you knew what you're doing.
Yeah. I had the same exact feeling. I just want to note. I was like, no,
Yeah.
no, yes.
Yeah, it was just like, he got this like floater opportunity over Gobert, who had a fully outstretched hand there, and yet Precious managed to float the floater and get it over him and, put that one in. So I thought it was also, was really great running in transition, which we know is one of the things that Precious can really excel at. He was on the receiving end of that awesome Mikal pass that you mentioned before in transition. I think that I also alluded to where Mikal sort of played cutoff man in transition there and got it to him. So just an overall, I think, really good return to form for Precious. Just kind of further proof that this guy, for whatever reason, whenever it's like in the moments where he's coming off the bench and he's sort of getting his footing, he'll look a little rough sometimes, but whenever the lights are brightest and the Knicks need him the most, he always shows up in a big way when they need him for a spot start or whatever. Like, that's just like his secret sauce is just like, I don't know, he just needs to be in a pressure cooker situation where he needs to produce, and he certainly did that in this game. I was really impressed with him. But other than that, unless you have anyone else to touch on, I mean, we didn't really touch on Campaign or Deuce much, other than to say that they were part of the lineup that put this away for the Knicks early on. But it was an overall great team effort in this one. And again, can't underscore enough, like, a game where Jalen Brunson is your fourth leading scorer, you still win by what, if you take away garbage time, could have been a 30-point win. I think this was one of the most impressive wins for the Knicks this season.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll note on Precious is, like, he was a little responsible for Julius going off. Like, I wanted to see him get into Julius's body, but maybe that was just a bad decision by Tibbs, who's Precious, like, is long, but pretty skinny. So that's a really tough matchup for him. The only thing I'll say on Deuce is, like, I thought it was a good game, not a great game for him. Like, missed some layups, missed some decent looks at three, but 16 points, the 8 assists really stand out. Like, his ability to play as a connected passer and honestly kind of fill the role. Like, I think normally a lot of those assists would have gone to Josh Hart, and the fact that he can step in and do that is huge. And I think it's a good reminder to Tibbs that even on nights where Deuce isn't shooting well, you don't have to automatically play Josh 36 minutes. Like, could we get to a point where Josh is out there for 32 and Deuce is out there for 25? That feels like the right balance for me, because the one thing we didn't mention with that lineup that makes it so potent is, like, it's truly 5-out basketball, right? Every single one of those guys, even though OG Anunoby now just 23% from three over his last 10 games, like, all 5 of those guys are threats to shoot the basketball. And that's part of what made it so dangerous. That's part of why they had so much room and why Minnesota was just scrambling to cover them, even with how incredibly good their defense has been. So I want to lean into more of those lineups. And even though Josh Hart is shooting it well from three, he does not get the respect that someone that like Deuce McBride gets and isn't treated like a shooter the way Deuce is. So lean into those lineups, get them some more minutes. And then my final play to the Knicks, can we get 10 games of this, right? Like, they look like a title contender. Last January, they looked like the best team in the NBA for 14 games. Give me 6 games even to start off. Give me 6 games where you play like this night after night after night. It doesn't have to be the exact same way, but I would love a stretch of dominant basketball, because I think that's what we need to fully embrace this team and say, hey, they went all in and it's worth it. Because tonight you could say, or last night, they went all in and it's worth it. Give me more of those nights. This was one of them. Incredible win. And we'll be back to talk to you very soon. I guess Sunday, next time we're going to record. But until then, he's Alex. I'm Gavin. We'll catch you real soon on Locked On Knicks.